So it sounds like for English learners, we have the language barrier, the culture barrier, and now for the students with interrupted formal education, or your SLIFE students, they also have the previous schooling background barrier added on top of this. This must bring in distinct academic differences in the classroom. Could you expand a little bit on
yes.
this?
In fact, I'd like to say that the cultural issues are also academic because they're deep cultural issues that are not visible. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit more in detail. In my work, I usually talk about 3 underlying differences. And one of them we've already discussed, the orality versus written word. That's visible, but it's also, changes your cognitive processes. The other difference is the dimension of collectivism and individualism, which is cultural. And it's a dimension that looks at how you perceive yourself in relation to others. It talks about personhood. We talk about collectivism and individualism as though it were a dichotomy, but it's not. It's a continuum, because some cultures are more individualistic and others are more collectivistic. So when I'm talking about this, think of it as a continuum rather than one way or the other way. But just to give you an idea of collectivism, the focus is on we. It's the focus on the group. And even when you're doing things for yourself, you're doing in the back of your mind, or implicitly, of course, not explicitly, you're doing it for the group, the benefit of the group. The group can be your family, it can be a larger kinship system, it can be whoever you conceive of as being part of that group. And you prefer to do things with others. You like to do things as a group, and you feel more comfortable and know your role within a group. And so that would be collectivism. Individualism is the focus is on I. So of course you have relationships and you care deeply about other people, but you'll see others in relationship to yourself. The center is more you, or I should say. And you see things in cultures that are individualistic, where people are rewarded for their individual effort, even at an early age, by things like, oh, you did such a great job, or pupil of the week and employee of the month.
Trophies and awards.
Trophies and awards, whereas you don't, and when you see this, for example, from the collectivistic perspective, the trophy is not for you, but it's for your country, or it's for your community, or it's for your family or something. And one way to think of this is, a student once said this to me, said, and she was Korean, she said, we Koreans, we are a snowball, but you Americans, you're all snowflakes.
Oh, how interesting. How beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And I think that very nicely sums up
this. Yes.
So you're probably wondering why I'm bringing this up in relationship to the students with limited or interrupted formal education. And that's because the research has shown that 70% or somewhat more of the world's cultures are collectivistic, closer to that end of the continuum, whereas the United States, Canada, Anglo-European cultures are closer to the individualistic culture dimension. And so what happens is they're coming with a very different perspective of who they are and how they're supposed to behave than we expect and how we behave, because we emphasize and we reward the individual. And I often get people saying, but wait a minute, we do collaborative learning, we're very collectivistic. I said, no.
It's not the same, and teachers truly need to understand that concept if they're going to make a difference in the classroom.